Our next witness is witness 179.
It's on page 349. Hello, Mr. Witness, can you hear me?
Yes, I do.
Sir, thank you for appearing to testify before the tribunal. Please repeat after me. I solemnly declare that I will speak the truth.
I solemnly declare to tell the truth
Truth and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
Followed by questions from the panel.
Mr. Witness, I understand that you have photos, and we will show those after you're done with your testimony. And I also understand that there's some sensitive parts of your testimony, so I would ask you to only disclose what you are comfortable speaking and what makes you feel safe. But I would ask you to please now tell us what happened on November 16th.
On 16th of November, I was at work. I heard the sound of shooting. My friends, let me first say that I did not go out for the increase in the price of petrol. I went out because I had my own reasons. There was injustice, atrocities. That was the reason I went out. Otherwise, increase in the petrol prices was not the reason I went out. I went to Bank Melli. There were about 10,000 people who had gathered, maybe 8,000 or 10,000 people had gathered outside Melli Bank. And we were protesting. We were throwing stones. Unfortunately, one of our companions was shot between Bank Melli and City Star, and he lost his life. In order not to be revealed, in order not to reveal my identity, I won't mention his name, but I have provided the information to the court. By Kalashnikov and other bullets, he was shot, and they were firing from the top of the base, and someone else had also been shot. Officer Rafai, who was the chief of the base, shot that companion, and he died as well on the way. Then we went to Melli Bank. Some people forced themselves in. They burned the bank. I did not go there. Some of my friends didn't go there either. There were some unknown, anonymous people. I won't say that they were people. And it is interesting that those who went to the bank were not stopped by the officers. The officers were shooting people, but they had nothing to do with those who were burning the banks. The people were protesting. So we were led towards Shiraz Square. We were still continuing our protest. At the time, one of our friends from the roof of the dormitory was being shot by a sniper in the chest. I unfortunately forgot, but that was a boy. I forgot the name, the brothers of what, I cannot remember. If you remember his name, could you say it to me? Dashtiniya brothers. One of my friends was shot in the chest. His brother became aware. He went to come and take his brother. He was also shot, and they died. We wanted to take them to the hospital. Then they opened fire by machine gun. We could not touch any of the injured. Finally, we were able to take them to the hospital, and then we were led to the police force, and we were protesting there. That time, Farzad Ansarifar was standing next to a pylon. He was objecting and protesting. At the time, a person called Mashhadi Nejad. I saw with my own eyes. He was shot by Kalashnikov, and he was shot in the head. And the bullet came out of the front of his head, and blood spread everywhere. He lost his life in place. After that, we went to an Pahlawana area. There was shooting over there too. A lady was targeted with tear gas. She had injury on her head and started bleeding. There was no ambulance. We were taking all of these people with motorcycle to the hospital, and some were not even permitted to enter the hospital. They were told that they were protesting. Some had to go to their houses to be treated. We protested. We received shots by machine guns. And I forgot to say this. When those who were burning the Bank Melli, there was a Bank Melli employee who was trapped there. The fire department tried to save him, but they were frightened to go into the fire. A person called Hashamgah bravely went and took the employee and saved him. And we went to Gode Baqqal, another area, and 15 students under 18 years old I saw with my own eyes. They had their own uniforms. They came towards us, and by the use of stun guns, shockers, and also pellets, they were attacking us. That we went to Gode Baqqal. All of these children were under 18. None of them was above 18. Even those who were shooting at us were under 18. So we were carrying on our protests. At the time, 2 people were shot in the leg. One of them I took to the hospital myself, and one of them my friends took to the hospital. When we returned and we were continuing with the protest, Hashamdar was behind me. Hashamdar was behind me when I saw him shot. And whatever we did to stop his bleeding, unfortunately, he died. This is as far as I had to say. This is what I saw on 16th of November. Now, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to respond.
Okay. Before the questions are asked, can we show the photos, please, that he had?
بله.
Of course.
Okay, we'll show them later. We don't have them up here. Mr. Chair.
باشه.
Good afternoon, Mr. Witness. I have only one question, and it actually involves a subject that seems to be coming up a fair amount. You mentioned that there were different security forces there on the 16th. The Basij, the police, the IRGC, there were snipers on rooftops. And you mentioned 2 or 3 times in your statement that they had their faces covered. Is that the case, where the individuals, their faces were covered?
بله.
Yes. Major Valfai was from the police station number 11.
And can you describe the covering? Were they makeshift, like someone tied a scarf around their face, or were they masks or were people wearing helmets? How was it that the faces were covered?
نه نه کاملا رسمی بود.
They seemed to have some formal covering. All of them looked the same. I'm not talking about the plainclothes individuals, of course. That is to say, they were already ready. They knew what they were doing.
Mr. Witness, just a couple of
بعد من
questions.
میتونم چند نفرشونم که شناسایی کرد.
I may even mention the names of some of those who we identified.
Those who were firing, who you identified, is that what you mean?
بله بله.
Yes.
If doing so would reveal your identity, then no. But if you're comfortable naming those responsible who you saw, then go ahead.
چند نفرشون
I can mention some of the names that may not cause any problem in connection to the revealing of my identity. The one who killed Mr. Qanawati, I saw with my own eyes. He was a major at that time. Now he's a colonel. He didn't have a mask or anything. You could identify him. He used a Colt, a sidearm, and then he shot Qanawati with 2 bullets in the chest. The other one was Farzad Ansari Far. I saw with my own eyes that Mr. Mashhadi Nejad with a military Kalashnikov shot him. I told the council that if it is really needed, I can testify against these individuals if they would be punished. But if I'm not sure that they would be punished, I wouldn't dare to testify in my own name. Mohammad Dashti was the other individual who was opening fire. He was an intelligence individual, and Mr. Hashempour was also a sniper. He was shooting from the top of the roof. Iman Hashempour was also shooting. Mr. Abbasian, he was the intelligence chief of Behbahan. Mr. Tabesh, these were the individuals who were snipers. And they were shooting at people. Muhammad Rasulan, he has been the Basid chief. He was ordering these individuals whether to shoot or not. He's a well-known individual in Behbahan. You can ask about him. If you want to know about him, he is a very violent, brutal individual.
Just a couple of questions from me.
خواهش می‌کنم.
As I understand from your statement, the first experience of the snipers for you was at 9:30 a.m. on the 25th Aban, 16th of November, correct?
بله بله.
Yes, completely correct, 100%.
You describe in your statement that there were 1,500 people demonstrating. And I just want to understand
بله.
what they were doing at the
بیشتر
time.
بودن.
They were even more.
Even more. I want to understand what they're actually doing at the time when
آره بله. کار خاصی
They were not doing anything to injustice and atrocity. They were saying that we don't want the leader.
But describe what they...
تنها سلاحی که
wait,
دست
wait,
The only weapon
wait a
they had was stones.
Were they walking? Were they running? Were they shouting? Were they singing? What were they doing?
نه نه راه میرفتن و فریاد میزدن.
They were walking and shouting.
راه میرفتن و اعتراض میکردن تو تظاهراتشون.
They were walking and protesting. They were chanting against the government.
Anybody throwing anything or setting anything on fire or doing anything violent?
اگر من
If you mean at the beginning, at the start, before the firing by the police started, no, we were just chanting slogans that we hate this government, we want them to go, and similar slogans. But after they started firing at the people, we were defending ourselves by throwing stones. That's a clear thing to do. We could not just stand there and be killed. The only weapon we had was stones. Among us, none had a weapon. The only weapon we had was stone, while we were being hit by bullets, pellets, stun guns, shockers. At the beginning, we did not even have stones in our hands. We were just chanting slogans. Even the night before, as you can see in the films, it was clear that only people were chanting slogans. They started violence against us. We only had a legitimate defense, a primitive defense. We were just defending ourselves.
Okay, thank you. I've got nothing further. There's another question from the panel.
Thank you, witness. Just one question from me. You had mentioned that one of the protesters had saved someone from the burning bank. And my question to you is whether you are aware of how the bank caught fire to start with.
Well, I cannot say 100% that people had done it, but the bank was set to fire by the people, the employee that I talked about. He had gone upstairs to safeguard the treasury, and when the bank caught fire, people called the firefighters to come, and we realized that there was somebody trapped in the fire. But the people themselves, they went into the bank and they saved him. Firefighters also came, but they said that it was too dangerous for them to go in, although they had put stairs there. The person who went and saved this employee is the same person who was shot afterwards in his neck, Mr. Hasham Dar. He even had his hands burned, but he saved the life of that employee. He brought him down from the stairs. If you look at the films, you can see all of this clearly. You can see a stout man, and if I'm not mistaken, he had a black T-shirt on. He put the employee on his shoulders and he brought him downstairs. That one was called Hasham Dar.
But just to clarify, as I didn't capture your answer clearly, are you aware or are you not aware of how the fire was started?
Yes, there were a few people who threw stones and also went into the bank, and they spread the benzene there, and it caught fire. But who they were, I don't know.
Nothing further from the panel. Counsel?
Thank you, Mr. Witness, for your testimony.
Thank you very much, Mr. Witness, for your testimony. We appreciate
فقط من اگر لطف کنید یه چند لحظه
If you allow me only a few moments, if you allow me, I just wanted to say something. Is it all right?
من
I just want to say something about Mr. Qanawati and Mr. Hashamdar. First, Mr. Qanawati, he was a person who was the only breadwinner of the family. He worked very hard. He earned a living for the family. He also did the housework, and he was the only person who was a consolation to his mother. And nobody makes any noises about his death. It was a very poor family. They still are there, but they are very much pressured by the regime. And I would like to ask you to plead with you to be the voice of Mr. Qanawati. There's also Mr. Hasham Khan, who was an innocent person who was killed, and nobody says anything about them. Mr. Farzad Ansari Far, I'm really proud of him because he's the voice of his brother, and he talks about him instead of Farzad. But unfortunately, as far as the families Qanawati and Farzad are concerned, nobody is talking about them. Their voice is not raised, echoed anywhere. But I think that these were the most innocent, the most downtrodden people who were killed. And Mr. Qanawati, both his legs were shot. And although that happened, he still stood up and protested, and this time he was shot in his chest. And Mr. Hashamzad, who went and saved the life of the employee in the bank, I want you to echo their voice. They are really downtrodden, really, really wronged, and I want you to talk in their place. If people who are sitting here can do something that they want to help, it is that what they can do, to be the voices of these people. And if there's anything that I can do, I'll do it from the bottom of my heart. I will do it. I just want the voices of these people to be heard. I just want to tell everybody how innocent they were, how downtrodden and wrong they were, and so that everybody would know about them. The voice of Hashamdad, especially Mr. Qanawati, is not heard anywhere. That is my plea to you, to be their voices, so that they can seek redress for them from this murderous leader and this regime that has committed so many murders.
you, Mr. Witness. We've heard everything you've said, and we'll take it all into account, and we appreciate you testifying. Thank you.